Okay, this tutorial we're going to examine some basic modeling concepts, and I'm not really trying to focus on any high resolution modeling, rather just a basic guideline and some principles to follow for just knocking out a very simple clone, if you will, that can be turned into anything that you want later on down the road. It's a process that I like to use for my models, and it's just a simple box modeling setup that can be used to pretty much model anything that you desire. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is let's get ourselves a box, and notice that I'm making this box on this side of the y-axis, and we're doing this because we're going to put a symmetry modifier so that whatever we do on this side is on this side. My box is going to be converted to an editable poly. I'm going to apply symmetry, go into sub-object mode, and move the symmetry over. And also just hit right click on my y-axis and set it to 0, because that's about where it needs to be. F4, I can see there's my center line. So there we go. And I go back down to editable poly, hit show end result, and now I can model one side and have the other side be a mirror example of what I'm doing. The last thing that I like to do as far as the setup goes for modeling is put a turbo smooth. Notice it is on top of the symmetry, so we have editable poly, then our symmetry, then our turbo smooth. Notice how the object changes if it's reversed. Okay, it's important the order. Again, I'm not going to try and focus on going extremely slow here, since it's a video tutorial. You can pause, rewind, do all those wonderful things. So just keep that in mind. I'm going to try to explain this as best I can as I go, but again, I'm not going to be focused and worried about going very slow. So anyway, right now the area that we are modeling is the torso, just below the neck, the arms, and so for example, if I were to extrude this way and bring this in, and let's say there's the neck, and if we come out this way, we're going to obviously come out to the arms. If we come down this way, we're obviously going to go down through the torso to the pelvis, and then eventually out to the legs. So I'm going to, all I'm doing is hitting the semicolon key, since the last command that I did was an extrude. Semicolon repeats the last command. So by semicolon we can just keep extruding as we want. I'm going to scale it down a little bit. Select that bottom face, extrude that out. As we can see, we have a very rudimentary box person here. And let's just move this in. One more time. And I'm going to go ahead and come out here. So I can see we have the chest, the shoulder. So if we look at the segments, this is the shoulder area. This right here is going to be the elbow. That's going to go down to the wrist. That would be the wrist and the hand. I'm not going to get into the fingers right now. Right now, the only thing we're trying to focus on is just getting a basic representation of the major body parts that we're going to need for our character so we can turn it into whatever we want. So right here I could extrude out, move it over, and there we can have legs. But what I like to do is actually take this edge and chamfer it, because that actually gives us our pelvis looking area right there. And now I'll take this one, and if I hit our semicolon again, the last command we did was chamfer, so it's not going to do anything because, as you see, polygon doesn't have a chamfer. So I've just got to make sure I come back and do my extrude again. Okay, we go to my front view, and there's our hips. This is going to be, I'll rotate this and move it. There's going to be our knees. Extrude again, and I'm going to scale down a little bit, rotate, and I like to rotate this flat because the next object that's going to be made is the foot. So as we can see, come down, and obviously this can go as far down as you would like, but I now select on the front, extrude out. There's our would-be foot. And for the head, bring this up. You got to keep in mind too that this whole entire process is relative to what it is you are trying to model. If you are trying to model a monster, this is obviously going to turn into something very different. If it's a lizard-like person, then obviously we're going to need a tail. And the trick with this tail, as we can see, we have these additional segments from our chamfer right here, and what would probably work better is if we had an area right in here that we could extrude. So I'm going to select on this guy, and I'm going to do an inset. Okay, and if I come in, right click, do my target weld, click on this one, so now those are welded. So now notice we have 1, 2, 3, 4 vertices, which is one polygon. And now I could take and start to turn this into a little bit more of a square. Notice I just pushed that excuse me, right over to the middle, to the symmetry, and just like that, maybe something about like that. Now we have a square that we can extrude, and we can do lots of wonderful things here with our tail if we so wanted. However, I'm not so concerned about having a tail at the moment, so I'm not going to be concerned about it. Just wanted to show you that is the direction we could go. Now at this stage of the game, we pretty much have, and I like to move my characters and scale them down because I like them fitting inside of this little square right here. And as we can see in the front view, we need, or I prefer, if he's lined up pretty good there. So that's a pretty good start for this character. At this point I would go ahead and go File, Save As, and let's put it on the desktop. And I'm just going to call this clone start 1, because from here this is about as low poly of a character as we can get. I could come in here and select on, let's say, one of these edges, loop, hold control. While I'm holding control, hit remove, and by holding control and remove, it actually removes the edge and the vertice. So I could come in here and do this again, and to be more accurate, that now is about as low poly as the character can get, and it has just enough segments to give the basic form. From here, this character can be turned into a character that is very large. Let's say he's got really big arms. If he's going to have big arms, he's probably going to have a big chest. If he's got a big chest, his shoulders, his traps are probably going to be pretty large. So we could raise those up. But from here, as you can see, it doesn't take much work to take this character and to really turn him into something that, you know, is a very quick representation of what we're going for. This guy can end up becoming anything that we want just from some very simple adjustments, and that's kind of the point here. The point is that we make small adjustments and we can quickly almost brainstorm the idea of the character really quickly. So if we wanted to take it into ZBrush or Mudbox or something and really get some more fine details going on, we could. And if we didn't, obviously right here this is going to be the elbow. So let's say there's the elbow, and this is the forearm. So let's go ahead and place that. So that's the forearm. And again, obviously we're missing a lot of details, but the trick here is looking at how quick we get what we are trying to achieve. With, you know, we had a guy that started off that was really skinny, and now we have a character that is getting pretty bulky. Now obviously this is not even remotely close to the end result of what we're going for, but that's not the point. The point is that we're blocking out our proportions. We're blocking out the mainframe, if you will, of how our character looks. We want him to have some wide feet. He's got wide feet. I hope that this is making sense. Again, this is meant to just be an example of what you can do, how you can approach doing a model. Again, the head is always going to be different because what kind of head are you going for? If we were going for a monster kind of character, we probably would maybe want a little bit longer neck, depending on the kind of monster. But the point is that, let's say we're going for a halfway decent looking human monster or whatever, very humanoid looking. Once we get the basic shape, then it's a matter of us going through and resegmenting the mesh to give ourselves more details. We see right here in our torso we don't have hardly any detail to do anything to the character. We don't have anything in here. So if I select on one of these and I hit ring, and then I come down to connect, I can say let's go ahead and get 2 subdivisions in here, and now obviously we've got more information that we can start doing more things with. So, but I don't like to start going around doing these subdivisions until I'm sure that I'm happy with the main shape, because the reason being, it's very easy for me to make these adjustments with very, very small. I'm going to go ahead and make this guy have some huge hands. And again, this should show you exactly what I'm saying. He looked like he was going to have normal size hands, and I decided I wanted him to have big hands, and all I had to do was basically adjust this area, the loop of these edges and this polygon, and now we've got big hands. Control page up with this one selected, grows my selection. Now I can move the whole hand down, and I'm going to let's go ahead and move this down as well. So again, as you can see, I'm just making very minor adjustments, and I can already see that all these adjustments, these extra subdivisions I just made, are kind of getting in my way. It's just more work for me to do just to block out the basic shape of this character. But I think that's pretty good for now. So again, the point, going from the simple box and then start extruding, and just keeping in mind what we're going for, and what's going to give us the quickest, most efficient way to get to where we're trying to get to without working ourselves to death. We want to work smarter, not harder. Take a look at this with our turbo smooth, and as we can see, we've got a basic Gumby like character that we can really kind of take really far and turn him into whatever we want. I'm just gonna continue on here. There is one more at this stage. I'm going to go ahead and hit file save again. There is one more thing that I like to do before if I'm happy with this, and for this exercise I'm pretty happy with the state that this guy's in at the moment. The last little adjustment that I like to do, let's say this is going to be his chin, and there's his head out there. The last major adjustment I like to do is he's really blocky right now, and what I like to do is add segments that run down here along the side of the arm, along here for the chest, and another row that runs down the legs, the side of the legs. I basically just like to subdivide it one more time. So if I just select on them, hit ring, as you can see, it's selected all these edges. So if I come in here and do my connect, set it back to 1, you can see I've now subdivided that side. If I pick this one and ring and connect, I've now got my arms. And if I come down here and do my legs, ring, connect, we now have the entire leg. Select this edge, ring, connect. We now have this one. To connect these two, I go into verticing mode, hold control, select one, hold control, select the other, connect. So now they're joined. Do the same thing for the back. Connect. And as you can see, we're now ready to roll. The last thing that I would do would be maybe subdivide this area. So ring, connect. So now we've got a little bit more information up here we can start playing with. And at this point, I like to deboxify. Even though with our turbo smooth on it's still a little rounded, I like to come in here and let's say, for example, a little trick that I like to do is select all my corner vertices, say around the elbow like this. As you see, we skipped the middle ones that we just made. And now if I scale it down, we see how it's actually rounding those areas off for me. So again, I'll select just the outer vertices along a really boxy area like that, scale it down, and now it's a little more rounded. And I think I'm gonna leave, let's see what it looks like. As you can see, it's a little more natural, a little more organic now, and not so boxy like it is out here. And that's really kind of the way that it should be, because it is a rounded area. This will eventually end up getting rung and connected, because we do need a bicep in that area. But we've got a lot more work to do before we start really focusing on stuff like that. So again, as far as the torso goes, I'm going to pick just the front area here, and I want to have this look rounded, so with just these two edges, I'll push them back a little bit and maybe pull this one out. And as you can see, it's rounded along the front, so I'll do the same thing here. Just push those in to see we have that nice rounded look going around the back. And since this is the back, this will probably be out a little bit more. And we'll do kind of the same thing here. And maybe do a little bit something like that there. As you see, it goes from boxy to rounded with just a couple very, very simple adjustments. And probably going to pull that out a little bit more, because that is going to be the lats. Straighten those out. This whole back arm, want to have back here. Same thing with this vertex, should be more back here. So you see, all I'm doing is just kind of organizing my mesh, organizing my vertices, because you don't want to work hard. If this seems like hard work, this is nothing compared to trying to fix a mesh that is not set up correctly. You will waste many, many, many hours on a mesh that really kind of just needs to be forgotten about and started over on, because the topology just is not correct. It's just not beneficial to quick manipulations, kind of like what we're doing here. Even though at this point we are doing a little bit more detailing, the fact remains that we really laid our character out pretty quickly with just a few vertices, a few segments. And now only thing that I'm doing is just kind of setting these up to help me once I really start getting into the detailing process, which I'm not at yet. You see, the only thing I'm doing is just still blocking them out. And again, I'm going to deboxify his legs by selecting every other vertice, the outer vertices, scaling them down. And I think I want to leave his feet to be really boxy too, but I want to round off his hips a little bit more. So I'll do them the same way I did top of his hips. Let's see what that looks like. Okay. So at least he's rounded. He's rounded off now. I'm gonna go ahead and make his entire foot bigger. And I'm gonna scale it out this way. Just feeling that a little bit more. Maybe bring it down a smidgen. And again, let's say I wanted his legs to go this way. Very easy change. When you model your characters, you want to make sure that you do bend them some. You don't want to have characters whose legs are so straight, because when you do the IK is going to have a hard time figuring out which way you want the character's legs to bend. So that's why I like to put enough of a bend in the character's legs that when I do the IK, I can kind of say you're going to go from here to here, here, and it gives that bend a little bit more. It gives that angle to tell Max to say this is the direction that the leg is going to bend. So just something that I do, and I think that it helps, especially once you've gotten past the modeling, the texturing stage, and you're ready to really start getting into some of the rigging. It's one of those things that really comes in helpful. So again, the only thing that I'm doing, I'm not getting into any detailing. I'm just adding the correct amount of topology to my mesh to make modeling easier for me. Just like I segmented the biceps, and now I need to segment the forearm. And the way I just did the thigh and the calf. So as it looks right now, everything is pretty much well segmented. I don't have hardly any areas that doesn't have at least a basic amount of topology on it. There are, and right now, this is a stage where we could really start making some adjustments. For example, if we wanted this guy to have some calves, right? So he could have some calves, and I can easily see right here, okay, well, that's too big, especially if we take a look at it. Maybe if I segmented this area, ring, and connect, now I can take and bring these edges back in, and now, hey, look, he's got calves. So again, I want to deboxify. And actually, this calf is going to be out like that. But this one, all these outers, and this is why I like doing it with that off. Scale that in a little bit. And then, if you see some areas that have got some issues, then just fix them. Better to fix them now and try to fix them later when everything's been subdivided a lot. And this part of the foot's probably one of the last places I can see that really needs some subdivision. It's a good idea where the knee is and the elbow is, that you add a little bit more deformation there. Rule of thumb is you give the bends 3 segments. So for example, I'll go and select on this guy, and I'm going to loop to select all the way around. And when I chamfer, as you see, that 1 now turns to 2, but if I up the segments, I now have three segments where there was just 1. Because this is our knee, this is where we're going to have a lot of bending going on. It's really good to have more information in this area. The same thing really kind of goes for the hips. So if I loop all the way around there, do our chamfer again, I might want to okay, so we have 3 there. Here's our elbow. Going to loop and chamfer. And the last area that I want to do is going to be right up here along the shoulder. Just so we can, yeah, we'll leave that like that and about like that. Everywhere it's going to be bending. So following that rule of thumb, we probably should do the neck. But notice the shape of the neck at the moment. Not really in great shape. So let me just try to do some little adjustments to the neck. Let's pull. So again, the only thing we're trying to do here is deboxify it. Pull this guy out. So that's somewhat of a round neck. Okay, so let's loop it. And we're going to have to bring that amount in a little bit there. Okay, so every area of the mesh that's going to have some bend in it, where our joints are going to be moving, we now have a substantial amount of segments in that area. Because if we take a look at the knee and imagine, you know, what we just did, if this is the segment that's going to hold the knee, then this one is going to bend up, and this one's going to hold this part of the leg. So here's the bend, this holds the bend, here's the leg. This is the area of the bend, but this is going to hold the calf in place. So if we can imagine this kind of folding in on itself, hopefully you can kind of picture the point and why this is going to be useful. Again, this is something that will be very obvious once you get to the rigging stage, but for now, I guess you're just going to have to take my word on it. Okay, so again, I'm really getting a little too much into the tweaking, but I'm kind of having fun with it at this stage. But for now, this is a good place for the character, for me to kind of sit and look at it and evaluate if this is the direction that I want the character to go in. Or is it not the direction? For example, let's say I look at it and I just kind of think to myself that it'd be nice if he was a little taller. Well, now he's taller. Come in here and select my legs, move them up, and now we've got some adjustments to do. But I hope you see that even though we can still make some adjustments, this is not the time to try to make a lot of major adjustments. Now that it's segmented like this, I would go File, Save As, Clone Start To, because we can see the original one was going to be very low res. So if I were to go File, Merge, and let's say I bring in, let's bring this guy in and auto rename, and look at the two of them side by side. Which one of these two would you rather say, you know what, I want this guy to be a little taller? Select those, select his arm, make him taller, pull his legs up, pull his knee up, boom, he's taller. Same thing, I'll say, you know what, I want his arms to be out a little more. I want his arms a little more farther apart. Okay, so I select that. Let's say I use a little soft selection. Turn shaded face toggle on so we can actually see the influence. And increase it just a little bit. And increase it a little bit more. Boom, now his arms are real far apart. Turn it off. Turn off the soft selection, and I'll come in here. So we can see I pulled these vertices a little bit off to the center. So if I turn my symmetry back on, move those back over. Now I fixed the area that had issues of separation. Alright, so again, I hope this helps. As you can see, this was a lot easier to make major changes to. You want to make them taller, skinnier, whatever. This is the way that I like going about my modeling. This is almost like the previs version of the character, and then once we're kind of happy with that, then we can take him, to the next stage and really start getting him prepared for some major adjustments and refinements to the character. The last thing that I want to show you before I wrap this up is how I would go about, let's say, putting gloves or pants or something on him. So I'm just going to say, what if he was wearing like armor on his chest? Okay. How would I go about modeling something like that? First thing you have to figure out, obviously, is what you're going for as you're modeling. But for this one, for this example, let's say he's just wearing almost like a chest plate kind of thing. I'm going to make sure I turn my ignore back facing on, and I'm just going to start selecting the area of his chest as if he was wearing some kind of protection, a vest or something. Let's see, that one comes across there. And let's maybe bring this one out to there. Okay. Let's say, for example, that I knew he was, that this armor, this chest plate he's wearing, obviously is sitting on top of his skin. And that's what we're going to try to model here. So I select the area that, looks like would be, and I'm really not liking not having that. So I want that now. Okay, so I know I can tell, hey, this is the area that he's wearing some kind of armor, some kind of cloth, clothing, or something. So with it selected, I go back down to my extrude. And obviously this is not really kind of what I was going for. But if I switch it to local normal, I can bring this in. As you can see, we can go down with it. That will give you a certain look. but if we tweak it just a little bit, it can actually give us some raised armor, and it just pushes out the normal direction of the polygons, which is really nice. And obviously if you go very far, it can start to look a little weird, but it looked like two. Yeah, it's a pretty good amount. Still got a little splitting, but that's okay. There's by polygon, which may or may not be what you're looking for, but I like local normal. And I'm going to come in here, and just like we did before, I'm going to select on this edge and push it past our symmetry line to make it one piece. Doesn't look like we have any issues back here. And we got one issue right here, and that's fixed. So as we can see, it now looks like he's wearing a shirt. And something that you need to be aware of is, even though this we can clearly see that there's something going on, we need to keep in mind that even though this is pushed off of the body and we can with our eyes kind of tell what's going on, there's a little bit more we can do to accentuate the fact that this is a separate object from his body. So with it selected, obviously we've got all these new faces that have been created from the extrusion. If I hit control page up one time, those are now selected all the way around, which is really nice. But what I want to do here is I want to put this whole new chess piece onto a different smoothing group. If I come down to my polygon smoothing groups, you see got all these numbers here. Okay. And what I'm going to do is let's just go ahead and say clear all for right now. Okay, and I'm going to hit I'm going to go edit, select invert or control I, clear all, which as you see they all went away, and I'm going to set everything, all the rest of his body except for our chest plate on smoothing group 1. Okay, so that means if I hit control I, so that means that with this one selected we see there's still nothing on, and I'm just going to go ahead and set this one to 2. Okay, so if I select on this polygon right here, we see that one's on 1 and this one's on 2. Okay, so what did this do for us? Well, first off, I think you can see there's a lot harder line now around our character, and if I go back to my turbo smooth, don't really see a major difference. But if we tell it to separate by smoothing groups, that's a really hard edge around this. Now we can start doing a lot of things with. So just by doing different smoothing groups, for example, let's say he's got around his wrist right here. Let me show you another little quick tip. Let's say I wanted to quickly select all the polygons around here. Obviously polygon doesn't give me the ability to ring or loop, okay, but I can do a trick. Let's say I select these two. Okay, you know what, we'll do it like this. I'll select this middle one, this middle edge. We'll go ahead and loop it. Okay, and I'm going to hold control and go to polygon, and because we were selected on that edge, it selects all polygons that were touching that edge. So now we are selected where we wanted to. So it's kind of like a quick workaround to ring or loop polygons if they don't have the ability to do that. It's kind of a nice little thing to know. So again, we just select on an edge, and then we go ahead and loop it so it goes all the way around. Hold control and then click on polygon. It selects on those polygons for us. Okay, so one more time, if I go down to all the way down to our smoothing groups, we can see that these polygons are on smoothing group 1. Okay, and if I were to, I'm going to go ahead and close these, tired of seeing them. And keep in mind we can also move these around. So I'm going to put the smoothing groups up here, right below my selection. Okay, so if let's say I did my extrusion, and that's good. If I look at my turbo smooth, I can see the difference that made. So this is looks a lot more different than this. Reason being is because of the smoothing groups. That's on 1. This one is on 1. The new one that had been created doesn't have a smoothing group. If I set it to 2, so again I will do my edge, and let's ring, hold control, as we see. So again, I want to select all those polygons, so I select that edge, hold control, go to polygon, or hit ring, then go to polygon, and it selects all of them. So now they're all on 2. So this polygon's 1, this one's on 2, this one's on 1. What does it look like? Looks like that. Why is this one different? Well, because this one's on 1, that one's on 2, and that one's on 2. What would happen if these were on 1 or 3? We would get that hard look like we have here, that really sharp definitive line. Take it off 2, set it on 3. Okay, so hopefully you see the benefit of smoothing groups. I'm not really caring if we put it on there or not. I would probably prefer that we did it on these. So ring, control, polygon, and we'll set those to 3. There we go. So it's just kind of good to know. It's an additional modeling tool that's really important. Don't know how far back this is going to let me undo, which is why, let's see how far back. Not too far back. Perfect, actually. Okay, so we can see right here our smoothing groups. This one's on 4. This one doesn't have one. These don't have one. So if we were to put our turbo smooth on and set it to separate by smoothing groups, as you can see, we have a very different looking guy. I wouldn't say very different, but there's definitely something different about him because of the smoothing groups. And one of the things that we can do to kind of unify it all is just select the whole guy, clear, and set them all on 1. So even though we're separating by smoothing groups, it's kind of looking back the same way. So I like that look we had down here. So if I came in and I wanted to keep that hard look, then I can take it off 1, set it on 2. Now we've got that crisp, hard look. Alright, so I hope this helps, gives you some direction on just kind of how to start making some characters with a very simple box modeling technique. There's a lot to be done with it, and I hope you see the benefit of doing the low resolution version of the mesh and how easy it is to kind of conceptualize a character very easily and kind of get like a prototype out there. In the next video tutorial that I do, I'm going to look a little bit more on how to start detailing this character out and taking it, the next step until, because right now he is a whole 4,000 polys with turbo smooth on, and without turbo smooth he's not even 1,000 polygons yet. And by the time it's all said and done, with turbo smooth off, this guy could be probably about 5,000 polys by himself, and then obviously with turbo smooth it's gonna jump up a little bit. But that's kind of the goal. I hope you learned something about this, and just keep in mind, keep practicing it, and I guess I will see you on the next time. Alright.